Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Very warm welcome. Good evening if you're just joining us. Numbers increasing quickly. Just wait for people to join the webinar. Drop a quick comment in the chat to let us know where you're joining us from tonight. Numbers just stabilizing now. So I'll begin officially. A warm welcome. I'm Andy Tucker, Naturetrek's General Manager, speaking to you tonight from my house in Basingstoke, North Hampshire, about 25 minutes from the Naturetrek office. It's a cold one tonight, frost on the cars already outside, but a very warm welcome and a happy new year from myself, all the speakers tonight and all the Naturetrek staff. Hope you've had a good Christmas and new year. We've had some good news at long last in the travel industry today. For any of you watching Prime Minister's Question Time from Parliament this afternoon, you'll have seen that the requirement to test for COVID before returning to the UK is being abolished from 4 o'clock Friday morning. And working in the travel industry, as myself and the speakers do this evening, we can say that over the past year, the fear of getting stranded overseas, having tested positive for COVID, has been one of the big barriers one of the things that's underlined or undermined, people's confidence when it comes to booking a holiday. So to get shot of that test and know that you can fly home at the end of your tour without having to be tested is a huge relief. The added bonus is instead of having to do a day 2 PCR test back in the UK, which typically costs 80 or 90 pounds, from Friday, you'll be able to do a much cheaper lateral flow test for about 30 pounds. So we anticipate this will give the travel industry in the UK a decent injection of confidence. And we hope that it will be a more positive year than the last 2 years have been, which have been pretty difficult. But enough of that. We're here tonight to have a look at some of the jewels of South America. And I've got some old friends of mine tonight, 4 excellent speakers. I'll introduce them just before their respective talks later on. But it's a real pleasure tonight to welcome Rob Williams, who's joining us from Madrid in Spain, Robin Smith, who's on tour in Colombia at the moment, Jose Antonio, who's speaking to us live from Cusco, Peru, up in the Andes in Peru, and Byron Palacios, who's down at his house in Dorset, UK. So we kick off with Rob Williams. Rob and I go back a long way, back to the late 1990s when we co-led a tour together in Ecuador. We've kept in touch ever since. Rob was fortunate enough to marry a lovely Peruvian girl from northern Peru, La Bañeque, and her family have been involved in ecotourism and conservation in northern Peru for several decades. So Rob and his family, extended family, have been managing and operating our northern Peru circuit ever since we conceived it in about 2007. Rob knows northern Peru almost like no other Western naturalist. So it's a great pleasure to have Rob along with us tonight to talk through our northern Peru itinerary, which operates every October. So great to have you along, Rob. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that lovely introduction. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome. I've only got 20 minutes to talk about one of the most biodiverse areas on the world, so it's going to be a bit of a whistle stop tonight. I've got just about a minute per day of tour. So normally I would hope to have 2-3 weeks with people to introduce them to this amazing area, but we're going to have to whistle through. I call this tour from the Pacific to the heart of the Amazon. The itinerary actually sometimes does it the other way, but that's the way I'm going to do it today because I think it makes logical sense in only 20 minutes. So we're looking at the area in the orange rectangle here, and you can see right to the left there's the Saturan Desert, that white area. But the main thing I want you to note here is look at the width of the mountains, and you see in northern Peru what's known as Cordilleran chaos. We've got all those ridges to the right-hand side of the main Andean ridge. This is the lowest point of the whole Andes, which is a really good point for anyone who's a bit worried about altitude. This is not a high elevation Andean tour, but that incredible chaos of ridges gives a lot of microhabitats, a lot of localized climates, rain shadow effects, etc., and is what leads to this amazing diversity. So just to run through, Peru is the second or third most biodiverse country in the world in terms of bird species after Colombia and Brazil. but it probably has more resident bird species on any given day than either of those countries because it's got less vagrants, etc. Northern Peru has about 1,600 species, some of which aren't accessible, but it's a staggering amount. On a tour, I reckon you reckon for 550 to sort of 700 species on the average tour, of which 59 are Peru endemics, 150 are restricted range global endemics to just different biomes, but often shared with Ecuador nearby, and a bunch of globally threatened species, etc. So let's look at some of the key families here. Hummingbirds, 87 species. Flycatchers, I know this will excite a lot of people, 151 species. And tanagers, 126. This is really, owls, it's got to be one of the best tours in the world for owls. I've seen 21 on one trip where we had some very keen owl people and we put the effort in. So this is roughly the route. It's actually, it's called the Northern Peru Birding Route. It's really a T-shaped circuit. Over in the west on the coast near the city of Chiclayo, and then we go all the way over to Moyobamba and Tarapota, which are the edge of the Amazon lowlands in the east, and then there's the sort of southern extension down to the city of Cajamarca. And so that's the journey I'm going to take you on today. Here's 2 transects through that, showing the altitudes roughly. So peaking at just over 2,000 meters across the main thing. This is the lowest pass in the whole Andean chain. And you can see that big valley in the middle, that's the Marañón Valley, and there's a lot of endemic species. So to the west of the Andes, we've got the coastal lowlands and western Andes, then we've got the Marañón Valley, and then we go over into the multiple ridges of the eastern Andes and down into the Amazon lowlands. So here we go. We start literally on the beach of the Pacific Ocean, really calm, lovely sea, incredible numbers of seabirds. Offshore here, we've got the most biodiverse, the most productive marine current in the world, the Humboldt Current. And so you get incredible numbers of birds along the coast here. There's 7 species in this photograph here of gulls and terns that are wintering on the beaches here. And we have a fantastic day looking at these riches and seeing some of the specialities of the Humboldt Current, like Peruvian pelican and the fabulous belchers or band-tailed gull. Just inland, although we've got this incredible richness offshore, right inland, we've got this incredibly dry area. Basically the northern extension of the Atacama Desert, which you've all heard of. So it's an incredibly arid area with a few prosopis bushes, etc., real desert. And we've got some great birds there. Our first probably for the tour, Tumbesian endemic species, the coastal myna. It's a bit like a tawny pipit, people always tell me. The lovely local endemic subspecies of tawny-throated dotterel, the pallidus subspecies, a beautiful desert bird we try and look for. Where we often in the same areas, we look for least seed snipe, and the regional bird of Lambayeque, the Peruvian thickney, which there are many folk songs about. Here we also have the smallest of the 3 subspecies of oasis hummingbird, only found in a very small area of northern Peru, the Kepkei subspecies, always quite attractive. Just inland again, where you get good groundwater, you get some much bigger forests. Prosopis is or mesquite is the dominant tree species. This is a national sanctuary. And this is an area where there were many ancient civilizations from the Moche, Sican, and Sipan cultures. And this is a set of adobe pyramids at Tucumé. And we go to a couple of these sites. There's a couple of good museums as well, which sometimes we call in and have a little look at those. But you get to see these incredible pyramids coming up out of the forest. Well, we're also looking for some fantastic birds. One of the rarest, got to be one of the most threatened birds in Peru now, the Peruvian plant cutter, a strange cotinga that's only found at a few sites now, and the very lovely rufous flycatcher. Then as we go up slightly in elevation, we hit the outer edges of the Western Andes. This is a mountain called Chapari that's very dear to my heart. This is a community conservation area that I spend a long time working with the community there. There's a very nice lodge that, well, I think it's very nice because I kind of helped design it during my honeymoon. It's very comfortable. We stay there and it's good. This reserve now has about 1/3 of the world population of white-winged guan. About 100 birds of this critically endangered bird are found in the reserve, and you can see them very easily right around the lodge. There are also some other great endemic birds like Tumbes tyrant. You'll notice a lot of these are called tumbes after the Tumbesian region, Tumbes sparrow, the fantastic, elegant crescent chest that's often right by the dining room, white-tailed jay that can be seen while you're sitting having your drinks and things, the pale-legged hornero or Pacific hornero, if you accept the split, and more widespread arid forest birds like streak-headed woodcreeper. There's a lovely area where hummingbirds come down to bathe in the morning. The most common species is the purple-collared woodstar, which we'll see displaying and things. And this is one of the best areas now for seeing the rare sulphur-throated finch. Interestingly, when Jelski described this bird, he described it as he considered it the most abundant bird he'd ever seen. And he worked in Africa as a bird collector and presumably seen coelias, etc. Now it's a really rare bird and very patchy and localized. And this is one of the good areas where you can still see good flocks of this bizarre colonially ground nesting finch. This is one of the best places for seeing mammals in northern Peru, the lovely Saturan fox, the smallest fox in South America. And it's a good area for seeing Andean bears. There's a rescue center that's got some, but there are also wild bears around. Just yesterday, there was a wild bear right by the lodge seen by the people who were staying there. There's a nearby big reservoir, which is great for some water birds. We go down there and I hope to see things like comb duck and a very bizarre population of black-faced ibis that are tree nesting, very geographically isolated from the migratory population in the southern cone of South America. Slightly different call, different size throat wattle, slightly different coloration. Also a good area to look for spotted rail, which is obviously a very popular bird with many when we see them, and the lovely many-colored rush tyrant, though I do prefer its Spanish name of 7 colors of the reeds. So a bit higher up on the west slope, we find birds like Ecuadorian trogon and the delightful Chapman's antrike, one of my all-time favorite birds, really beautifully marked, I think, and the tiny Ecuadorian piculet. So then we get up into the top of the Western Andes. I've now jumped us to Cajamarca, which is the highest point on the whole tour. And here, in amongst the remnants of polylepis forest, we look for birds like stripe-headed antpitter and grey-bellied comet, another very endangered bird. Really only one good site for this bird, only a few pairs left just outside the city of Cajamarca, which is an incredible historical city that we get a moment to look around the square and things like that. The endemic black metaltail, widely distributed in Peru, but always nice to find where we're looking for the grey-bellied comet. And now I'm going to jump into the Maranhão Valley. And this is the upper part of the Maranhão Valley, a spectacular gorge, nearly 2 kilometers deep that we drive over and drop down into. You know, that's the view from the top, and then when you get down to the bottom, you've got this really arid cactus scrub with little strips of gallery woodland along the main river. And here we look for the very rare and localized yellow-faced parrotlet, and we got a chance on this tour of seeing all five species of Inca finch. The genus Inca spisa, the Inca finches, are endemic to Peru, the whole group. And this tour is the only tour that gives you a chance for all 5. This is my personal favorite, and actually the sort of usually the tamest and most confiding, the lovely buff-bridled Inca finch. We also look for the birds like Maranhão thrush and the endemic buff-bellied tanager. Then from the Maranhão Valley, we can move across into the more humid eastern Andes, where you've got real cloud forest up at the highest points here. And this is an area that was inhabited by an ancient culture called the Chachapoyas. This is one of their archaeological sites called Cuelap, which we visit on the tour. It's phenomenal. It deserves to be as famous as Machu Picchu. It's becoming better known, but it really has been overlooked for many years. And you can see these incredible walls, and it's still covered in forest. It's got a magic that Machu Picchu doesn't have because there it's all been cleared, etc. Machu Picchu is fantastic, but this place, with the forest cover still there, it gives you sort of a bit more of the impression of this lost civilization. They're really fascinating people, and there's a very good little local museum. We usually pop in and spend a couple of hours having a look at some of the culture of their burials and their mummies and things like that. This is also a great spot for hummingbirds. We often see the sword-billed hummingbird, and the lovely purple-throated sun angel can be found right up at the ruins there. we're at the top of the more widespread birds like chestnut-crowned antpitter, classic Andean cloud forest birds, golden-headed quetzal, grey-breasted mountain toucan, one of my personal favorites, fabulous grass green tanager. But there's a bunch of other good hummingbirds. One of the really spectacular ones is rainbow star frontlet. A bunch of different subspecies of this in its tiny, relatively small range in southern Ecuador and northern Peru, but this is one of the better ones here that we see there. The rare, globally threatened little wood star, absolutely tiny, only just bigger than the bee hummingbird. But one of the highlights of the whole trip, and one of the most sought after birds only occurring in the Utcubamba Valley, which is like a side valley off the Marañón Valley, is the marvelous spatule tail. And we put in a good effort, and the trip is timed to be there when the marvelous spatule tail males like this one have their full tails, because they lose those tail feathers after the breeding season. They'll be displaying right now, but in about April, May, they lose those tail feathers and don't regrow them again. And that's why this trip is timed in September, October time, because the males have now got their full tails again, and you don't want to see one without that tail. Another very good bird, the second largest antpitter in the world, the pale-billed antpitter, also found in the cloud forests near here, which we make an effort to look for. Around the cascading rivers here, we have the lovely torrent duck and fabulous little white-capped dipper, the only dipper that doesn't dip. And then we move into the sort of easternmost ridges of the Andes, an incredible area known as Abra Patricia, which is this incredible cloud forest that drops down from nearly 2,000 meters down to about 900 meters elevation, and we work that whole transect. One of the big targets here, which we make a big effort for on the first few nights, is long-whiskered owlet, the world's second smallest owl, and only discovered in 1977 and then lost for many years, and no one even knew its call. And another one was caught and it was tape recorded, and gradually it's become available. It's a monotypic genus, the Xenoglorx, and it's got these sort of decaying feathers on the face, lovely little thing. And we put in a big effort to try and find that. Well, we're looking for it. We don't want to hear this before we've seen it, because rufous-banded owl, if they start calling the long-whiskered owl, let's shut up. But after we've seen it, we look for rufous-banded owl and the localized cinnamon screech owl in the same area. Another great bird here, royal sun angel, a real East Andean ridge bird, and the absolutely delightful ochre-fronted antpitter. These used to be quite a tricky bird, but fortunately someone is now feeding them on a regular basis, and you can go there and it's a bit easier to see now. So, and we'll also hopefully pick up another endemic, the rusty tinged antpitter. The cloud forests here have a lot of the sort of more widespread Andean birds like white-capped tanager, montane solitary eagle, Andean cock of the rock, of the saturata subspecies, the sort of intense colored one. Lanceolated monklet, a delightful little puff bird, as we're dropping down now to the sort of 900-meter elevation. Rufous-breasted wood quail, and when we get into that sort of foothill zone, we hit some more really good hummingbirds. Rufous-crested coquette, one of my personal favorites. Wire-crested thorntail, another spectacular one. This is also a good area where we stay down near the town of Moabamba to look for owls, and we'll look for but to look for Stygian owl there. That can often be found at dusk or at night. There's also a bridge going over a canyon where there are oil birds nesting, and we look down from the bridge and can often see oil birds, which is rather nice. Another chance for another good mammal, a critically threatened mammal, the San Martin titi monkey, is found in the little remnant dry forest patches down here, and so we have a look out for that. And these dry forest areas also hold lesser known birds like Buckley's forest falcon, a bit more widespread, but still this is probably one of the better areas to look for birds like this. And birds like long-tailed potu, again widespread but quite reliable down here. Another one of the endemics that's only found out on these eastern ridges is Kepke's hermit, which is a a nice one to look for. So that was a whistle stop through the birds. Now I'm just going to take a minute, leaving the old Kepkis up here, to talk about some of the other things. So I've mentioned the culture. I mentioned some of the cultures on the coast. I mentioned the Chachapoyas people. We've also got fantastic food. Peru has won best culinary destination of the world for something like 7 of the last 10 years. And so you get some really exciting new food, you know, chance to try new things and stuff. The other great thing that's happened in many ways is that they've asphalted most of the road network. This 15 years ago, this was a really difficult tour. There was camping involved. There was long journeys over terrible roads. Most of it's now, the main roads have now been asphalted. So we can get to places much quicker. That's meant that more people are going, so better hotels have set up. So now there's no more camping, etc. This is the time to go to northern Peru. You've got good infrastructure, good places to stay everywhere we go, good food, good complementary culture, absolutely fantastic birds, and amazing landscapes and other wildlife as well. So I think even though I've gone through perhaps a little faster than I should have, but thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you all in northern Peru soon. I'll pass you back to Andy if I can stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Rob. That was fantastic, and wonderful memories of my last trip to northern Peru in 2007, when Prom Peru put together a big fam trip, didn't they? I think at that stage, and arguably even now, Cusco, Machu Picchu are the victim of over tourism. I mean, that region of southeast Peru is crowded. But in your region, northern Peru, you can get away from people, can't you? And often you'll bird along that transect and not see another Westerner during the course of the day. Might see a lorry full of bananas, and that's it. So, like you say, it's a great time to be over there.
Yeah, I refer to it as the sort of, it's like a rain shadow, but it's a tourism shadow, because everyone thinks, oh, I've got to go to Peru, I've got to go to Machu Picchu. So that puts them in the south. So people really don't go to the north. And if it was a different country, if it was a separate country, it would be incredibly popular, because it's got some fantastic places and scenery, culture, etc. It's got it all, but not many people. It's great. Yeah.
And just before we hand over to Jose Antonio, just a word on the chap who leads that tour for us each year, Alejandro Solano, a Costa Rican mutual friend of ours, who's been resident in Ecuador now for about 15 years. Alejandro does a wonderful job leading that tour for us each October. You've been expert hands with him. Right, thanks very much, Rob. If you have any questions, there's a couple coming in on chat and Q&A. We'll come back to those later on. Rob's going to be with us all the way through to 9:30 UK time this evening, so he'll be around for a chat at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions to put to Rob later, either put them in the chat or Q&A, or hold fire and ask them later. But next, gives me great pleasure to welcome another old friend of mine, Jose Antonio Padilla, who's speaking to us directly from Cusco, where he lives. He's another old friend of mine. We worked together and worked and lived in the same lodge in Tambopata in southeast Peru back in 1996, 1997. I don't think, Jose Antonio, you'd have called yourself a birder back in those days, but over the years, you've developed into one of South America's best, most knowledgeable and sharpest resident birders. And you also lived in Scotland. I think you worked in a hotel in Scotland for a few years. So you learned kind of the British sense of humour and have got a wonderful command of English. So Jose Antonio is a great companion on tour. So I think this is the first time in all of these years we've been doing roadshows, both in person around the country and online. It's the first time we've ever featured Bolivia. So great to have you along, Jose Antonio. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for the introductions. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Well, this afternoon, I actually talking from Peru, from Cusco, and this afternoon, I'm going to talk about Bolivia. For most people, Bolivia is not a very well-known country for birds, but hopefully with this nice 20 minutes talk about Bolivia, people will like to come more to this fantastic country that I really like living, birding trips on it. So normally we do 2 trips in Bolivia, the lowlands and the highlands, all right? The lowlands takes about 7 days, 6 nights, and the highlands is a little bit longer because we obviously go into more areas into Bolivia and takes about 10 days, 9 nights. So when most people come, they like to combine these 2 trips. So we do a lowlands and highlands together. So To start talking about Bolivia, we can see the map of Bolivia here in South America first. Bolivia is neighbor to Peru, Brazil, Paraguay, you know, and a little bit of Chile. So here's some interesting facts about Bolivia that I will like to read them because obviously not many people knows about them. So as you can see, Bolivia has 1,435 bird species, of which 18 species are endemic, meaning that they only exist in this region, you know? So Bolivia is the richest landlocked nation in the world in bird diversity. So Bolivia is also the fifth country with the highest number of birds in the world, and the fifth in the Americas despite its lack of marine and coastal habitats. Most people say that if Bolivia had access to the ocean, will be the country with most bird species in the world. A 3-week birding trip to Bolivia can yield more than 700 species, guys. It's a lot of birds found in this country, believe it or not. The only country in South America that offers birding specialities of Amazon habitats, yungas, cloud forests, of course, Chaco, Cerrado, and Savannah biomass, all in a 3-week tour, right? Which is the only one really, because you go to Brazil, you know, Peru, we don't actually get all these habitats together. Bolivia is also the only country which we have 2 endemic species of macaws, right? The red-fronted macaw and the blue-throated macaw, out of the 13 species of macaw recorded in the country. So if you go to Bolivia, Peru, and you know, Ecuador, Colombia, you never see endemic species of macaws, only in Bolivia, which is amazing, right? Many of the, and in these trips we do with Naturetrek, we have a chance for 1 species of the 2 endemics of macaws, which is the red-fronted. For the blue-throated macaw, we need an extra time, you know, and it's usually offered separately. Many of the birds found in South and east of South America, folks, reach the limit of the range in this area of the central eastern part of the country. So saying that, you know, I would like to give you a couple of examples of what I just said. You know, let's say, for example, the red-legged seriema is an amazing bird that we have in South America, right? And that is mainly found, as you can see here in the map, in the southern eastern part of, you know, the continent. It's only in here in the central part of Bolivia where it gets and it reaches limit, all right? So doing the lowland tours in Bolivia, we have a chance, a very good chance to get the bird, the red-legged seriema. On the other side, we have, for example, when we do the highland trip, no, and here I have an example of this bird called golden-colored tanager, right? Near endemic to Bolivia, as you can see, and near endemic to Peru as well, that are also found here in the center of the country. So that's why Bolivia is so interesting and so nice to travel around, especially when it comes to these birding groups, no, of these birding tours, because if you go to the eastern part of the country, you get to see the eastern, you know, some of the eastern species of birds of South America. As you come to the western side of the country, you get to see some of these western species of birds found in the western part of the continent. So that's why Bolivia is so nice, because it's in the middle, right? So here are some of the Bolivia ecoregions that we visit during the tours, right? It's a little bit complicated, but basically we cover 4 of these, all the bioregions that we have in the country. Basically, starting in Santa Cruz, which is where we start in this lowland tour, we do and we see and we do a lot of birding in the savanna woodlands, you know, also known as Cerrado as well. Going a little bit more to the west, you know, we get to this interesting habitat, which is the dry Bolivian mountain forest, right? As we go ascending up to the Andes, right? Because Santa Cruz is located about, I would say, 1,500 feet in elevation. So that's why we do, we start and we call it the lowland trip. We start in the very low elevation, which is the city of Santa Cruz. And then we start making our way up to the mountains, to the Andes, not going west, no, of the country. So basically, as we keep moving forward, we actually get the Bolivian cloud forest, also known as yungas in Spanish, right? Which is amazing in Bolivia. It's probably the most pristine and most unbelievable cloud forest in the whole world, to be honest. And especially in South America, probably the best cloud forest I ever seen. And we finally, you know, do some birding in the Central Andean Puna. Puna is an area which is above the tree line, over 3,500 meters in elevation, which is about above 10,000 feet. And it's a very dry habitat, you know, mainly dominated by ichu, grass, which grows in very high elevation in the Andes. And that's what we finish our tour when we do the highland, trips. So I'm talking about Bolivia lowlands trip a little bit. So as you can see here in the map, we fly into Santa Cruz. Normally, international flights into Santa Cruz are very early in the morning. They arrive by 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's amazing because as soon as you get off the plane and you get out of the airport, you start the birding. Because Santa Cruz Viru International Airport is located in a fantastic sort of savanna woodlands habitat, all right, that could provide with a bunch of new birds for all of the participants here. So basically you have to have your binoculars and your, handy and start the birding right away. So as you can see here in the map, what we do is we take the older road into Cochabamba, which is another big city, that's going southwest of Santa Cruz. But we spend some time, around Santa Cruz before we actually leave the area, right? So we go from Santa Cruz down into this nice place called Refugio Los Volcanes, and then we go further west into Saipina area, and we finish around the area of Comarapa, which is an amazing, sort of route for birding. And I'm going to explain you why. As I said, as soon as we get off the plane and we get out of the airport, all right, this is a nice picture of the habitat we have just around the airport. We can start birding, right? So the species register around Viru Airport or Santa Cruz Airport is about 268 species. So we actually spend very good 2 or 3 hours of very good birding around the airport. And you have to be careful sometimes because you are birding in the airport. Sometimes the police that are guarding the airport came after you and start asking you, what are you doing here? What are you watching? And all that stuff. And we always have to talk to the police and the security people that we are fine. We're only bird watching. And a little bit funny sometimes. But anyways, so as we move on, so this is some of the amazing creatures and birds that we can see just walking around the airport, folks. Like, for example, greater rhea, which is very often easy to find just walking there. Red-winged tinamou, because the habitat is cerrado, so it has a very sort of a small grassy area. So tinamous are easy to get, like this red-winged tinamou. White-bellied notura as well, another species of tinamou we have at the airport that are easy to get, which has a nice little yellow legs, as you can see here. Another bird also found just walking around the airport, as I said, is Wira cuckoo, for example, here on the left. Wira cuckoo is a bird that is can be seen just in the parking area of the airport. So is the Campo flicker that you can see up there. So burrowing out, for example, is almost everywhere. You walk around there, it's burrowing out almost everywhere. White woodpecker, yeah, you have to walk a little bit further, but all around the airport area is also good to get it, And as I said, most of these birds that we can see in this first part of the tour are only found in the lowland part of the trip, right? Because as we move farther west and farther up into the mountains, then we don't get to see these birds anymore. So another amazing birds and quite easy and common to see around. So for example, choppy blackbird, which is a bird that are very noisy and you can actually hear it as soon as you get out of the airport, is calling all the time. Grassland sparrow is a sparrow that you have to walk a little bit into the grassland area, but it's again easy to see. So is the Shoto spinetail, which is a very small spinetail with a very long tail, beautiful, as you can see here in the picture. That is also found in the small bushes around the airport. So as I said, we spend the whole morning usually birding there at the airport. And then during the time that we are around Santa Cruz, we also go to other places like the Botanical Garden, for instance, that's not far from the city. And there we get things like Bolivian slaty anstray, which is now Bolivian endemic. fluorescent warbler, another bird that if you are not in Santa Cruz, you're not going to see it anymore because it's only found just to Santa Cruz east of the continent. So it's foam-breasted wren, right? That is very common around in the botanical garden, for example, and the golden crown warbler. So these birds, right, which I call them key species, are the ones that we always look for around, no? Some of the mammals that we are likely to see during this lowland tour in Bolivia is the brown-throated three-toed sloth, which is quite common and easy to get in the botanical garden. No, crab-eating fox sometimes comes out at night, and it's also nice fox to see. And Andean or spectacled bear, though it's hard to get, it's also the home for these birds, the only one species of bird found in the southern hemisphere. It's not saying that we're going to get to see these birds, but we are likely to see. I think the most common or the often seen out of the three species of mammal we have here is the sloth. No, that is almost always in the botanical garden. So another fantastic place that we actually go and we spend some time in during the lowland trip is the Refugios Los Volcanes Lodge. This lodge is, as you can see here in the picture, hiding in the middle of the forest, right at the base of the mountains of what we call the foothills. It's a little bit far from the city of Santa Cruz, going west, as I told you already, on the way to Comarapa and Cochabamba. And it's like hidden, right, in the middle of the mountains. It's just fantastic place owned by an older German person who had been living in Bolivia for many, many years. So Refugio Los Volcanes Lodge has its own key species in terms of birds. These are some of the pictures of the lodge, sorry, that we will spend at least 2 nights here. A lovely main building where all the bedrooms are, and then it has a lovely dining room as well where the people can make excellent breakfast there early in the morning. And sometimes, the local people who own this place will make homemade pizzas, as you can see here, and we're all delighted to see it, and to actually eat it. So it's a very good food there, very good place, feeding, very quiet, full of birds around. And it's also had a full of a trail system also that we can explore during these 2 days we spend there. So this lodge is located like at the very farther southern part of a big national park in Bolivia, which is called Amboró National Park. So it's right next to it, So the bird life around is just amazing. Here is some of the birds that we are likely to see just in this spot, which is Los Volcanes Lodge. One is, for example, Yungas manakin, which is in fact the logo, right, or the symbol of the lodge. Flash-crested jay, which is here especially easy to get because sometimes come to the feeders and they get some food in there. So great tinamo as well, easy to see on the trails, right? As you can see, comes out of the forest and stay there for a long time. So we have had great views of great tinamos in the past. And black-capped wren, which is another bird that here in this particular place is where it reached the limits of the range, right? Bolivian recurvebill, which is almost endemic to Bolivia, is also found in some of the bamboo patches that we have in this property of the Volcanes, Refugios Los Volcanes Lodge, right? So Andean condor, believe it or not, is very often seen in this a place early in the morning. It will be soaring up there in the sky. So sometimes I have had only have the chance to see the condors in this lodge, and later in the trip I didn't see it. It was amazing. But here Andean condor is actually easy to get. When it's the season, the whole forest around will be covered with military macaws, for example. I've seen it like hundreds, when it's season, which is normally September and October. And toco toucan, which is the biggest species of toucan that we have in South America, is often seen there just in the grounds of the lodge, right? So another place that we go also during the lowland tour is this place called Monte Branco, which is basically a spiritual retreat center. which is located in this small town of Comarapa. It's very nice, privately owned, by these people that actually work with young Bolivians, very young teenagers. When we get there, sometimes we meet the people, so most of the time we don't. So the place is really quiet. And we stay here also during the tour. As you can see, some of the pictures of the place, we get to stay in small cottages, very well occupied. Some of them will have fireplaces that you can see, nice to stay in. They're like little houses. I think you call them cottages, right? And here's also a place where we stay. And here around the lodge, we are already in a different habitat, which is much more dry, as you can see, full of some crops and farming areas. And the valley that we can see here is known as the Saipina Valley. And in this valley, where we spend also some time building, is the best and the only one place to get the red-fronted macaw, which is one of the two species of endemic macaws in Bolivia. You can see, the habitats dry, very small sort of trees. The roads that you can see is no asphalt yet. However, I heard that it's been recently asphalted all the way to Sucre, because this is the main road that goes to Sucre, which is south of Bolivia. But anyway, so it looks like it's actually getting better, this area, in terms of accessibility. And here, there is an amazing amount of good birds as well, and different ones. Like, for example, red-fronted macaw is easy to see, flying there close to the big cliffs, of the mountains there. Cliff parakeets, which is now endemic to Bolivia. It used to be part of the monk parakeet, in the past, but it was a subspecies for many, many years. Now it has split to its own species called cliff parakeet. It's unique and endemic to Bolivia. Gray-hooded parakeet, that's very small sort of parakeet that also live in this very dry habitat. So is Bolivian earth creeper, another endemic bird of the country that we get just behind the lodge. There is a nice place that I know that I always take my clients, and we always get to see these fantastic birds. A spotback puffbird, that's also easy to get there. Another Bolivian endemic, Bolivian blackbird, as you can see here. Greater wagtail tyrant as well, and the scissor-tailed niger is often found behind the lodge as well at nighttime. So these are the birds we do. Now we go to Bolivian highlands, right, which is, as I say, a little bit longer. So we start usually this trip in Cochabamba. So for the people who actually combining these two trips, after we spend some time in Comarapa, we go back to Santa Cruz, and from Santa Cruz, we fly to Cochabamba. It's only 45 minutes flight. We get to Cochabamba, we start the trip to Cochabamba, and here is a map that you can see that we cover basically three main cities of Bolivia: Cochabamba, Oruro, and La Paz, right? So we start with some of the specialties here, and in around Cochabamba area, we can get things like wedge-tailed hill star, for instance, near endemic to Bolivia, the fantastic red-tailed comet, that are also easy to get. One of the most restricted and most critically endangered species of bird in South America, Cochabamba mountain finch, that live in one nice area known as Cerro Tunari, right? That we always get to see because it's highly localized in that particular place. Maquis canastero as well, another Bolivian endemic that we can see down there, and Rufus belly mountain tanager that used to be called Rufus belly saltator, and now I have changed to mountain tanager because recent studies have shown that it's not a saltator, it is actually a mountain tanager. No, again around Cochabamba we go and visit some of cloud forest habitats, and there we got things like green-throated tanager, right? Torrent duck as well, a different subspecies found in southern part of the continent. White-eared solitary as well, a bird that is found here. Bang-tailed fruit eater, easy to see in one of the cloud forest spots. We go close to Cochabamba, sorry. Versicolor barbet as well, and hooded mountain tanager are birds easy to get around these fantastic areas, of cloud forest. We have also plush cap that here in Peru, for example, I always very hard for me to see, but in Bolivia it's easy to get. Orange brown hemspingus, the same thing. Another day we can get Andean cock of the rock, and this fantastic light crowned spinetail is always in the bushes in the cloud forest. Now Cochabamba also has one big lake in the middle of the city that is Laguna Alalay or Alalay Lake, that we also go one of the afternoons before we leave Cochabamba city. And here we get things like Andean avocet, for example, red shoveler, which is very hard for South America. Rosy-billed pochard as well, another bird that is easy to get in that lake. A red-fronted coot, that have been recently reported in this particular lake. Titicaca grebe is another of the grebes that we get in this highland tour. And the 3 species of South American flamingos, that are like Chilean flamengo, Andean flamengo, and James or Puna flamengo are also found in one of the lakes we visit during this trip, especially close to Oruro, which is a very, very high elevation city. Then we finish in La Paz, right, Bolivia. La Paz is an amazing city. It's not the capital of Bolivia because the capital city of the country is Sucre, right, which is south of the country. La Paz is the biggest city. It's actually where the president lives, right, but it's not the capital. So La Paz is located in a very big, deep valley, right? And the valley goes from 4,200 meters in elevation, which will be about 14,000 feet, down to 3,200 meters in elevation, which would be about 10,000 feet or so. All right, and as we're coming into La Paz, we stop on a nice lookout point, and from there we can get, views like this of the whole city, right? So some of the habitats we actually visit during our stay in La Paz is like, again, Puna, central Puna, which is very dry, very high in elevation, some of the Andean lakes, and we also go to the Yungas, which is cloud forest, as you can see down here. There's amazing patch of cloud forest there. And in fact, going back a little bit, but we actually go and we do birding in one of the a road that we know as the Carretera de la Muerte in Spanish, which means the death road, because it's a very thin road that goes very steep into the cloud forest of La Paz. And it has obviously a bit of reputation. That's why the name is Death Road. And that's where we go one day. And we do a lot of birding there because the forest there is just fantastic. All right. This road is also used a lot for mountain bikers, as you can see there. That's why, we always get there very early in the morning before they get there, because by 9, 10, or 11 o'clock, there will be a lot of mountain bikers coming down the road. But by that time, we usually finish with the birding, especially in that particular area, right? And so the key species around La Paz that are easy to see, maybe not easy in Ecuador, maybe not easy in Peru, but for the trips we do in Bolivia are actually easy, like the sea snipe, for example. Now, guys, if you ever been in South America, you know how hard it is to get sea snipe. But here in Bolivia, a spot, up in La Cumbre, which is the summit, not close to La Paz, where we go and we get things like Rufous belly sea snipe, gray-breasted sea snipe as well. The 2 species are actually there. And then the giant coot, which is the biggest of all the coots in the world, are also there around La Paz. Black-hooded sunbeam is another bird that we actually have around the area, which is a Bolivian endemic, right? And another day we expand just to get the birch-less canastero, as you can see here on the right, which is another Bolivian endemic. And to get there, we need to go very close to Titicaca Lake, which is this picture here on the Bolivian side, of course. And we spend a lot of time driving to actually get to see that that bird. And then we also, during this day, we get to see fantastic and lovely views of the Lake Titicaca, which, as you know, is the most, the highest navigable lake in the world. This is the hotel we use in La Paz. It's a 4-star hotel. It's the Hotel Rosario. As you can see, it's quite luxury, has a very good restaurant, good food at night. We don't need to get out of the hotel. Actually, for dinner, we stay here for 3 nights, 2-3 nights, depending on the tour. So as you can see, fantastic place to stay. And just before I finish, so people know that for many, many years, Bolivia didn't have an actual book, for the birds in the country. But recently, only 5 years ago or so, Bolivian conservation group did, after many years of work, the first field guide of birds to Bolivia. And this is, in fact, the books we recommend for our bird and tour to Bolivia. Unfortunately, this book is only sold in Bolivia, right? And but if you can't get this book, if you ever want to come to Bolivia, but you can't get the book, you can get other books, that is also good for Bolivia. Like, for example, South American Passerines, by Robert Richley, Birds of Brazil, by Wildlife Conservation Society, Aves, Birds of Argentina, Uruguay, and these 2 other South American bird books that are highly recommended. So for the highland parts, you can get and bring Birds of Peru book, or the Birds of the High Andes as well, which are highly recommended for this trip. Anyway, so I hope I did my best for these 20 minutes, Sandy. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon in Bolivia, everybody.
That's great, Jose Antonio. Thank you very much. Wonderful talk. Some absolutely wonderful birds there. You've showed us some great photos. I know you've developed your photographic skills over the years, and that really shone through there. Great stuff. The 2 tours Jose was talking about are 2 bargain birding tours in Bolivia. Lowlands goes late October. Highlands fits on directly afterwards in early November. We've got enough people to run those tours in autumn 2022. Jose Antonio would love to be greeting you off that plane in Santa Cruz for some wonderful birding. We're going to go for a break now. I think my slide says we're going to be back at 8:25, but I'm just going to elongate that slightly, and we'll be back at 8:30. Okay, so see you in just under 10 minutes, just time to go and get a drink or nip to the loo. See you in a few minutes. Right, folks. Great. Well, Byron's just been ribbing me because I left my camera on the interval, an amateur mistake there. So apparently you all saw my lovely Adidas tracksuit bottoms. Made the effort to put a nice smart shirt on. So apologies for that, but I hope you've had a nice break there. And it's a great pleasure now to introduce Robin Smith. Robin was part of the Naturetrek family from, I don't know, Rob, was it 2012, 2013 you joined Naturetrek, around about then?
Around about then, yeah.
And Robin was involved in our operations department and set up a tailor-made division, which is still going strong today under the managership of Georgie Head. But Robin, we were sad to lose you, Robin, in 2017. You chose to go off and pursue a new adventure. You emigrated to Colombia, set up your own travel agency, which Naturetrek uses as a ground agent for some of our trips. And when we conceived this schedule this evening about 5 months ago, Rob emailed me about a month ago and said, Andy, I've got this trip in the new year and I can't turn it down. I'm afraid I'm going to have to back out of your roadshow event. I said, don't worry, Rob, just make sure you're in a hotel with some good Wi-Fi and you can join us on tour. So here you are, Rob, halfway through a much needed tour, one of the first tours you managed to get off the ground. I think you're in pursuit of some exciting mammals, aren't you? I'll leave you to hand over to you.
I am. Yeah.
Over to you, Rob.
Okay. Right. Okay, let me just share the screen there. How's that looking? Right. Good evening, everyone. We're not seeing your shared screen yet, Rob. Oh, hang on. 1 second. How's that?
There we go. Yeah, just need to go into slideshow view now.
Okay, apologies about that. Right, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Andy. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And thanks to Rob and Jose, and I'm sure Byron coming after me. I've been loving the talks. It's a real pleasure to be with you all this evening. I am, as Andy says, I'm currently in Colombia. I'm in a place called Otunquimbaya, which is near a city called Pereira. I've been looking for nocturnal mammals. I've been up all night, so I went to bed at 7 a.m. This morning. So apologies if I look like death warmed up, but I'm going to do my best to run you through one of Naturetrek's suite of tours in Colombia, and I'll also touch on some of the other tours that Naturetrek are running, and try and give you a good overview of Colombia. It's a wonderful country, friendly. We operate tours in the green FCO areas. Obviously, Colombia's had its well-documented troubles in the past, but we're operating tours here and have been over the years now, and they're wonderful tours. Colombia is such a friendly and welcoming country. I would encourage anyone to get over here, bird, and enjoy Colombia's incredible diversity. So just to give you a quick introduction on where Colombia is, as you can see here, we're in the north of South America. We have the Isthmus of Panama running into the country. Colombia has the Pacific coast here and the Caribbean coast on the north. You'll note here down, this is the Amazonian region, the Llanos region, and you can see here there's three distinct ranges. The Northern Andes split into three ranges in Colombia. We have the Western Andes here, the Central Andes, and the Eastern Andes. And I'm going to be the tour that I'm talking about this evening, the Magdalena Valley and the Eastern Andes, really focuses on this Eastern Andes here, the Magdalena Valley, which has the Magdalena River, which is Colombia's largest river running through it, and also we touch upon the eastern slope of the Central Andes. So we're really covering a nice range of habitats. You can see here we're in this blue area, this Andean region here. That's where this particular tour is going to be focused. So yeah, Colombia, as I say, is an incredibly diverse country. More species of birds than any country in the world, approaching 2,000 species. Close to 500 species of mammal, over 1,300 species of reptile and amphibian. I saw Dan Lay made a comment earlier. Him and I have been putting together a wonderful herping tour as well. So there's that tour on Naturetrek's website. And and plants and orchids diversity is really just off the scale. It's a wonderful country. Let's kick off. In here in the Eastern Andes of Colombia. The tour starts in Bogota. We fly direct from London. And as soon as we touch down, we arrive early in the morning. As soon as we touch down, we're whisked off about 45 minutes to have a nice, comfortable breakfast in front of hummingbird feeders. You can just see out the window here, there's a few feeders. We're all watching the hummingbirds here. And we'll get straight into the birds with spectacular species like tourmaline, sun angel. And of particular interest here is the regionally endemic golden-bellied star frontlet, one of the real special hummingbirds of this cloud forest reserve, where we have our first breakfast on a tour. We cross over the Magdalena Valley. We cross the Magdalena onto the eastern slope of the Central Andes near the city of Ibagué, and we have spectacular views of Nevado del Tolima, this wonderful mountain volcano that we see in the picture here. We stay in a beautiful lodge in a canyon called the Coimbeña Canyon. It's a spectacular location with wonderful views. We've got hummingbird feeders in the lodge, so there's plenty of hummingbird action, and it's a great place just to kick off the tour. The birding is spectacular. We'll be burning in this canyon in cloud forest habitat, and we'll be getting into Perhaps some of the more common species that we'll see early on include Andean motmot, marsh trogon. This is the female of marsh trogon here, and species like pearl tree runner. Real common mixed flock cloud forest species. So some great introductory birding to kick the tour off. We'll spend a morning wandering through this lovely habitat where we'll be sort of open pasture with fringing cloud forest. And we'll spend a full morning in a lovely private reserve with hummingbird gardens. And it's a great place for a bit of photography for those interested in some photography, with species like crowned wood nymph, purple-throated wood star on the hummingbird side. And also we'll be starting to look for some of the key Magdalena Valley endemics, including the rather skittish and often hard to find Tolima dove, which is quite common here, and our chances are excellent of seeing this endemic of the Magdalena Valley. We'll also be looking around the gardens for yellow brush finch, another endemic. And there'll surely be more colorful, impressive birds like green jay or Inca jay around as well. In the rushing streams, we'll be hoping for torrent duck. They're quite common in this spot, so we have good chances of those. And we'll be doing a little bit of owling as well. So we'll be hoping for species like mottled owl, and we'll be doing owling throughout the tour in wherever we can, really. I should mention the tour itself is relatively fast-paced. It's an 11-day tour. Early mornings are absolutely the norm, and we can expect to see perhaps, well, I should say in the February tour that we run in 2020, which was the last time that we operated this tour, we saw over 400 species on the main tour itself. So that's just 11 days, including the flight. So it packs a punch, this Magdalena Valley and Eastern Andes tour. So moving on from our initial location, we'll go north, head north along the Magdalena River, and we'll be enjoying some birding in open country where we can get the scopes out, and we can enjoy, surely we should enjoy spectacled parrotlet and near endemic of these areas, and species, quite common species such as russet-throated puffbird as well. And we'll be hoping for views of northern screamer, perhaps laughing falcon, nice open country bird, nice easygoing birding. We can add on a good number of species here in this open habitat and fringing wetlands. A little further on, we'll be again targeting some of the key Magdalena endemics in some slightly more open forested country. We'll be looking for the likes of beautiful woodpecker, another Magdalena endemic, and then a little further on, we'll come to our next lodge where we'll spend a couple of nights. This is just near a lovely reserve called Rio Claro, which protects extremely threatened lowland Magdalena Valley rainforest. We're about 600 meters above sea level here, and it's hot and humid. It's certainly hotter than the first couple of nights where we're in slightly cooler climes. So it's really nice that we have a lovely, cool pool that we can dip into at the end of a good day's birding and just cool ourselves off and enjoy the surroundings. So we're a little bit further up. Let me get the mouse here. We're a little bit further up the Magdalena Valley up here now. So we've moved from this area up the river, birding as we go, in different dry forests, open habitat, and now we're in this humid Magdalena rainforest. As I say, the Rio Claro Reserve is a karst limestone habitat, and it protects this very threatened forest. As I say, the Rio Claro River runs through this the reserve, and if we're lucky and it hasn't rained over the previous couple of days, the river is absolutely crystal clear. It's an absolute wonderful place to bird and enjoy a full morning of birding. Well, in fact, it will most likely be a full day because there's so much to see here. We'll kick things off hopefully with good views of Magdalena antbird, a skulky endemic here, and we'll be hoping for views of fasciated tiger heron as well, and which sort of patrol the margins of the river. Another one of the key endemics here is another Magdalena special, a white-mantled barbet, and we'll be hoping for views as well of another of the key endemics, sooty ant tanager, a spectacular but rather skulky species, but we should get good views of this wonderful bird. Sort of more striking and showy species include gartered trogon, rufous motmot, and a barred puffbird in sort of the forest edges. Species such as cinnamon woodpecker are always nice to see. And if we keep our eyes to the sky, we perhaps will see the striking swallowtail kite, and perhaps even king vulture as well. Towards the end of the day, we'll move to a spot a little further along the river. And if you just see here on the left-hand side, there's this sort of cave entrance here. This cave holds a nice population of oilbirds. So we'll wait at dusk and enjoy the spectacle of the oilbirds coming out of the cave, screeching and squawking in their rather bizarre fashion, which will be a nice end to that day. The area here is really a great spot for manakins. One of my favorites here, striated manakin, is certainly a possibility, as is the wonderful golden-headed manakin. So we'll make a special effort to find these wonderful little birds of these humid forests. Around the forest edge, we'll almost certainly come across Colodarasari, and we'll be certainly hoping for citron-throated toucan as well, a sort of regional endemic of this area. If we're lucky, we might find the likes of saffron-headed parrot, quite a tough over the days that we spend in the Rio Claro, we'll more than likely come across the endemic white-footed tamarin, or silvery brown barefaced tamarin, if you want the tongue-twisting name. A wonderful little primate of these habitat, as well as the varied white-fronted capuchin as well, which are reasonably common as well. Less common is the endemic Santander dwarf squirrel, which we might find as well. So there's some mammal interest in these Magdalena forests. We'll again do some owling and hope for species such as the striking crested owl. And then, having enjoyed our time in the Rio Claro Valley, we'll move across. Let me see if I can get the mouse. We'll move across again the Magdalena River and reposition ourselves on the eastern Andean range. Here we'll be spending a wonderful couple of days in a reserve called the Cerulean Warbler Reserve, which is kind of a reserve that holds both nice secondary forest, including this, we can see here, this is a coffee plantation, shade-grown coffee, and it also holds primary forest a little further up the slope as well. So we'll be birding both these habitats over the time that we spend in this lovely reserve. In the coffee plantations, there'll be a wonderful diversity of migrant flycatchers, migrant warblers, as well as resident species as well. And we'll certainly come across a vermilion flycatcher, the resident rufous-capped warbler, And as the name of the reserve suggests, we'll be hoping to see the migrant cerulean warbler, which overwinters here. And this was really the concept of the reserve, was to protect habitat that would aid this rare warbler in its overwintering before it returns to breed in North America. Around, we'll find wonderful species such as crimson runt toucanet. Sorry for the photo. I should say all these photos are mine. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're all on me. This is the endemic turquoise dackness. Trust me, it's an absolutely striking bird, and we'll certainly get better views of than this photo actually demonstrates. But it's one of the key endemic targets of the cerulean warbler reserve when we're there. Around the hummingbird feeders in the gardens of the reserve is the endemic indigo-capped hummingbird, as well as striking species such as green-fronted. Oh gosh, my night's work's caught up with me. Let's move on. Sorry. This is probably a good point to introduce some of the local guides that we work with for the tour. Here you can see my good friend here on the right, Hanan. He's one of the local guides that we use to operate these Magdalena Valley tours. He's an absolute red hot birder, hence why we're getting over 400 species in just a short space of time. As I said, above the lodge, we'll be birding in some of the primary forests, where we'll be hoping to nail a couple of key targets. Here we are with the group in one of the trails above the lodge. More hummingbirds are possible up here, including the wonderful long-tailed sylph, and of key importance, the endemic black inca, which is quite a tough species, but here they've got some feeders up in those forests, so the black inca is pretty reliable. We'll be hoping for some mixed flocks with grey-headed tanager, golden tanager, and perhaps the wonderful, striking red-billed scythebill with that incredible curved bill there. Moving on from the cerulean warbler reserve, we'll spend some time on some lower slopes, some warmer slopes. We'll be looking for the likes of bar-crested antbird and ruby topaz hummingbird, as well as chestnut-bellied hummingbird as well, another regional endemic we'll be looking for there, and also the likes of Nicipheroides wren as well. So there's many endemic and regionally special species that we'll be targeting on the tour. In a little unknown, reasonably unknown spot, we'll be hoping for another one of the key target species of the tour. We might come across the common basilis on the way, and we might run into some unexpected scenes. This was a scene that we saw in the area where a python had taken this unsuspecting hummingbird. But with some luck, we'll be able to call in and enjoy views of one of the really special birds of the area, the recurve-billed bushbird. This is the female with this lovely chestnut color. I've got an even worse picture of the male, but look at that bill. They like secondary bamboo growth, and they use that bill as almost like a tin opener to sieve through sort of damp and decaying bamboo to get inside looking for grubs and tidbits. What a bird! It was lost to science and only recently rediscovered in certain, and it's got a very patchy distribution in northern Colombia and into Venezuela. So it's really we'll be making a special effort to find this weird and wonderful recurve-billed bushbird. Along the way, we'll be enjoying Colombian coffee. I'm obviously biased, but I really do think it's the best coffee in the world. lovely spreads throughout the tour, great food, wonderful hospitality, smiling faces wherever we go. It's really a delight and a pleasure to bird and travel in Colombia. We'll finish the tour, we'll fly to the capital of Bogota, and we have a night here. We'll finish the tour in absolutely spectacular fashion in the wonderful Chingaza National Park. It's a paramo habitat, so we're above the tree line here, and it's a neotropical savanna habitat. And it's an absolutely wonderful place to finish up the main tour. So we're high. I can't get the mouse here. We're high up here in the Eastern Andes now. Absolutely spectacular scenery and spectacular birds to boot, such as scarlet-bellied mountain tanager, the wonderful golden-fronted red start or white start. This is the Eastern Andean race, as you can see here, with the white white face marks. And we'll be looking for silvery throated spinetail, another endemic, as well as rufous-browed conebill, I should say, a regional endemic, and purple-backed thornbill. Some really nice hummingbird interest up here. Another near endemic bronze-tailed thornbill. On the tour, the February tour in 2022, we recorded a total of 47 hummingbirds for the tour. So if anyone's interested in hummingbirds, this is it's hummingbird central. We're in downtown Hummingbirdville, and it's just absolutely packed full of wonderful hummingbirds. It's just dazzling. We'll be hoping for the wonderful plush cap up in the cloud forest, and we'll finish off the day in a relaxed hummingbird garden. Finish off with some more dazzling species such as sparkling violeteer, almost certainly wonderful sword-billed hummingbird, and the regionally endemic blue-throated star frontlet. For anyone who wants to add on a couple of days to the tour, we do a short extension, which includes more paramo birding, as well as cloud forest birding. The likes of crimson mantle woodpecker are certainly possible, Andean pygmy owl. The habitat that we'll be birding over these days is absolutely stunning. There's more regional endemics, such as oh gosh, I'm very sorry, I'm extremely tired. Such as this Apollinaris wren. There you go. There's the name. But the real key target for the tour is for the extension is the green bearded helmet crest, which is another absolutely magnificent hummingbird of the Eastern Andes. It's got a tiny distribution. It's a great bird to add on to your list if you're coming on the tour. So that's really wrapping up the Magdalena Valley tour. For anyone who wants to add on a little bit of comfort, we can do tailor-made extensions to the Northern Caribbean coast, to Tayrona National Park, if you want to warm up after those paramo habitats, where you can find wonderful endemic primates such as cotton-top tamarin. I mentioned that Naturetrek offer a suite of tours in Colombia, and one of the key tours is the Santa Marta tour, which targets the Santa Marta endemic species, and you stay up in the wonderful El Dorado Lodge. Equally, we can do extensions should you take the Magdalena tour up to this wonderful reserve where you can get anywhere between 15 and 18 of the Santa Marta endemics. There's also, of course, the multicolored tanager tour, which is named after this striking tanager, multicolored tanager. And we can also see this bird on the birds and history tour as well. So another great target on a couple of the other Colombia tours that Naturetrek operate. For anyone who wants to add a bit of culture, they can go to the Gold Museum in Bogota. Orchid diversity is completely off the scale. There's over 4,000 species, about 1,500 of which are endemic. So any orchid fanciers can delight and bathe in Colombia's incredible orchid diversity. And I'll finish off with a slide of one of my favorite birds, the Buffy helmet crest, which can be seen on several of the tours. including I think including the multicolored tanager tour, if I'm not mistaken, Andy, as well as the birds and history tour. So that really concludes my my talk. My apologies if I've looked like death warmed up. I'm probably going to hit the sack as soon as this is over, but thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Thanks very much, Robbie. It's been great to have you along. You go off for a well-deserved sleep. A wonderful talk. It's almost as if the three of you so far are in competition with each other, showing off the delights of your respective countries. And for a lot of us watching tonight, I know a lot of you, I can see the names on the attendees list. A lot of you have done significant amounts of birding in South America, but we've been starved now for 2 years or more, and it just whets the appetite. Just can't wait to get back over to the Andes and get back to those tanagers and hummingbirds and toucanets and antbirds, etc. Wonderful stuff. Right, next up, and to finish the evening, well, we're going to have some questions later on, but the last talk tonight is by Byron Palacios, who has been, well, Byron, in the early 2000s, you actually led Naturetrek groups, didn't you, in Ecuador? And then you came to the UK in about 2006 and came on board as a Naturetrek tour leader. And you've just clocked up your 200th tour. I think you're one of a select bunch of maybe 3 Naturetrek tour leaders who have clocked up 200 tours. The majority of those have been in Spain, where your language skills are of great value to the business and the clients you take. But no doubt a lot of people watching tonight would have been abroad with you. You've done a wonderful job for Naturetrek over the years. Canyo's an excellent close friend of mine. And tonight I've tasked you with talking about your homeland, which I know you're passionate about, and don't get over there as often as you'd like to. I've got a soft spot for Ecuador as well, having lived and worked there for a year. It's a great country. And you're going to finish off the evening for us, Byron. So over to you.
Exactly. Thank you, Andy. Thanks for the introduction. And thank you for those wonderful mouth-opening talks. You know, Rob first about this lovely country, Peru. Then Jose with the beautiful Bolivia, or unique country I missed a lot. And obviously Robin with the wonderful Colombia, another country that I really missed. And I'll be there soon, I'm sure. But I'm going to talk to all of you about my lovely land, Ecuador. As you know, I'm Byron. I'm from there originally, and it's you know, I know, as Andy said, was a competition of who's getting the most colorful bird here and the most colorful landscape. But unlike Bolivia, I can put Bolivia aside, quite unique country. Unlike Colombia and Peru, we are right in between. We are actually the filling of that donut, between the filling of that sandwich that makes Colombia and Peru. Ecuador is right there, right in between of them, in that little corner, which 272,000 square kilometers, just slightly bigger than Britain, but with a wonderful size and you know, small size but wonderful biodiversity. I think we clocked just under 1,700 species. We're located, as I said, right in between Colombia and Peru, that little triangular country there, piece of land there, heading into the Pacific Ocean. And the wonderful thing of Ecuador, it's that the size allowed to have everything close together. I mean, lovely countries like Peru and Colombia, due to the sizes of the countries, you have to, you know, the distances are an issue, but you get to, you know, eventually to each point with fantastic services. But in Ecuador, you know, I always said this in a funny way, you know, you can, by car, you can have breakfast in the Amazon, lunch up in the highlands, and dinner down in the Pacific coast. And going through all this, going through amazing cloud forest and foothills areas, you know, which allowed you to see the wonderful diversity of this country. Now, describing Ecuador very quickly, I made this graphic. It's basically a cut of the country. Unlike in Colombia, you have 3 different splits of the Andes. And Ecuador's got a simple one, which is quite away on the western slope from the Pacific Ocean, and on the eastern slope is quite away from the Amazon, having a lot of intervalleys Andean intervalles, cloud forest, foothills, mountain forest, temperate forest, like main 9 different habitats in between. And all of this, within this main habitats, you have microhabitats, you have a lot of microclimates, which make the experience even more exciting. I mean, we start the trip from Quito, which is located right in the Andes, at 2,800 meters, lovely city, but we land down in one of the valleys of Quito. And the first bit of this lovely Andes and Amazon trip I'm going to talk to you about, it's exploring the eastern slope. So we're flying down a half-an-hour flight from Quito down to Coca, which is the Amazon region. And from here, we're going to start exploring the wonders of the upper Amazon basin. The infrastructure along this area is quite good because of the oil explorations being from the 70s. And it has developed quite well. And also conservation. It's been obviously a contradiction with conservation, but it's been more or less quite good alongside the preservation of different habitats. Right here from the Napo River, we have a very comfy boat, which takes you down this very sneaky river, but still wonderful areas to see and wonderful wildlife to see along. And then until we get after 2 hours and a half to one of the lodges down there in the Amazon that we use, Napo Wildlife Center in this case, and switch to a paddling boat, which take us through very narrow canals where we can often see fantastic wildlife. And obviously the accommodation after a long day of traveling is superb. And as you can see, we can see all the lakes around here, all these wonderful views. And the birding, obviously, this is from Sacha Lodge, a neighboring lodge in the area, where canopy walks actually allowed you to see all the stuff, all the birds mainly, and mammals and all the wildlife from the top. And it's easily as I call easy birding from here, as things, you just have to scan for things, put the telescope, and or guys as well, just put the telescope up and you can watch all these wonderful jewels. There's also, apart from the canopy walks, there's some canopy towers from where you can watch amazing stuff, and often these old canopy towers are attached to a big cape tree, which might be up to 50 or 60 meters tall from the ground. A spectacular views. And from here, obviously, the birds are the first sort of jewels you can see. Colorful paradise tanagers, like this one right here on the top left. Ringed woodpecker, another rare thing that you can easily to see from the canopy. White-throated puffbird as well. And many arasaris like this, letter arasaris, and other 6 species of toucans can be seen along from here. Mammals along the canals are fantastic, and a very good way to explore the Amazon basin is going on paddling boats through canals. All these in the edges of these oxbox lakes, blackwater lakes, and it's easy to pick, lovely night monkeys. In this case, night monkeys, if we're lucky. Often our native guides know where they roost or where their whereabouts. So with their great help, is easy to find them. Other fantastic primates to see along this area are the golden mantle tamarin up in the northern bank of the river, the southern bank of the Napo River. Ecuadorial saki monkey, which is quite rare, and amazing creature. I was even fascinated, but it looks like a Star Wars character, really. And you have a very pygmy marmoset monkey, one of the smallest primates in the world. Amazing stuff, with footage of golden mantle tamarin. Amazing creatures. Again, we'll be visiting many areas and open lake, Varsia forest, and different type of forests, as well as along the white water rivers in search for wildlife, especially birds. And one of the main attractions here is neotropical otter, a much smaller, very similar size, a bit smaller than European otter, if you're familiar with their size, but very possible to see them here. They're quite well spread in the foothills of the Andes. It's a good place to see it alongside their giant counterpart, which is giant river otters as well, which are fairly easy to see along this lake, around the lake of these Amazon areas. Clay lakes as well, where parrots go in early in the morning to get their intake of salt and minerals. Also, we sit there very quietly. We can find up to 6 or 7 species of them. You can see here very colorful color-winged parakeets and Crown Amazon, mealy Amazons, amazing. We live behind the Amazon, as Rob said earlier on. We have to dash through all these slides so to give you a little bit of taste of what our tours are about, and the rest you have to find it out yourselves. So we leave the Amazon behind, and we drive back to the Andean slopes, particularly to the eastern slope of the cloud forest, where a lot of lovely and different wildlife can be seen, like this black-billed mountain toucan. Amazing mountain toucans are one of my favorite group of birds. There are just a few species, but just absolutely stunning birds. Torrent ducks, as Rob and the other colleagues, Robin as well, featured them earlier on in these talks. They're quite easy to see along the whitewater rivers, along the rafts there, and they are incredible. I mean, it's one of the iconic South American species that, as a must-seen bird, a lot of people will kill to see one of those. So we work really hard to clock to you that one of these birds under our belts. Then heading to the Andes, passing the lovely cloud forest, we touch base with one of the world's most wonderful mountains, like Cotopaxi here, very visible from many angles of Ecuador due to its high altitude, one of the largest or highest active volcanoes in the world. And we have Cayambe as well, alongside Antisana volcanoes. And our next stop is up in the high Paramos, where above 3,500 meters above the sea level, where these wonderful jewels are mountain tanagers, amongst many other species of birds. Mountain tanagers, again, are the most seen birds, often seen in flocks, group, some of them solitary, some of them in groups. We have hooded mountain tanagers, scarlet-bellied, buff-throated mountain tanager, lachrymose mountain tanager, a masked mountain tanager, which is quite rare and locally located in these areas. Also, a lot of Ampita species. I just got here Tony Ampita, very easy to see literally everywhere. They remind me of robins in your garden. They just turn up in any open space along the Paramos. Also, Rufus Ampita, more sort of shy and timid, but you can hear it at all times singing away. Black-backed bush tanager, another rare species, and one iconic one on the bottom right, giant conebill, an iconic bird of the Andes, very specialized in polylepis, this paper bark-like tree, fantastic tree, which is normally located on tree lines right above. It's probably one of the last vegetation or trees before the snowy area of the tundra Paramo, and it's amazing. It's just one of these iconic birds that you're very likely to see in this trip. Also, spectacled bear and other mammals are really possible to see along the, we're always scanning for things moving along. Pumas a bit more difficult, but it's always possible. As long as you're in the area, everything is possible. Everything is possible. So always going to be scanning along. Sword-billed hummingbird, I think Robin was featuring this hummingbird as well. Easy to see in the Paramos of Ecuador as well. Here you can see this one photographed. Actually, this was from one of the pools in the hot springs up in Papachacta, feeding directly from the Brugmansia, from this trumpet flower. Amazing bird. The accommodation, like in all our places, are really, really lovely, really comfortable, spectacular, like these hot springs in Papajacta up in the high Paramas of Ecuador. When the day, this is an unusual clear day because it's normally overcast. It's normally, you know, that's the Paramo thing. It's like going to the beach without sun. You go to the beach, you're expecting sun. Go to the Paramo cloud forest, you expect clouds and lower mist and foggy, but unexpected when it's clean, you know, you can see snow caps like Antisana volcano. Again, in the cloud forest, we have much basic accommodation than in the Paramos, but still really lovely and stunning and comfortable, with lovely food, lovely social areas in the lodges, and fantastic birds throughout, with hummingbird feeders everywhere, and flock of birds non-stop as well. And kind people with fantastic sense of service and beautiful food. Beautiful food. Ecuador is incredibly famous for their soups, for its lovely variety of food, suitable for all sorts of diets. From the Central Highlands, and after passing the eastern slopes to get there, we are heading west down to the western slopes, but going through an Interandean Valley before heading, which is quite of a dry sort of area where we can find a few species on the go, like this purple-colored woodstart, one of the small hummingbirds around these lovely areas with black cabullos. A giant hummingbird as well is possible in this trip, and we often spend a good time looking for this bird and others in this kind of dry habitats. But going down into the wetter bits of the cloud forest, this is a more subtropical sort of wet and foggy areas. You can see the vegetation changing dramatically as we're going to Ecuador. And that's the facility of driving through these roads that actually visually, you know, you see the changes of each life zone. And obviously every stop we make, you know, we make stops along the road to do some short walks, to do some birding, and species, as we are driving lower in altitude, we're getting new and newer species to add to our list. And obviously colorful endemic birds and localized birds like toucan barbet, endemic choco, endemic of this region. You know, suddenly you can hear it from the distance. These calls of vocalizations they have is absolutely unmistakable. Tanagers, as we were showing around, tanagers are one of the main groups in these areas. This plain-faced tanager, cock of the rock, another bird that we actually have a tour, a legendary tour named after this fantastic cotinga, which can be seen quite easily in during this trip. To go to certain areas where we can see them, sometimes lacking or just flying around in search of food or they're fruit eaters. So they're amazing birds to see, absolutely stunning. Actually, even this picture doesn't make any justice of the actual bird himself. And other cotingas like this orange-breasted fruit eater, you know, are really lovely to see around. Toucan barbet, as I said, you can see in some of our lodges really close like this. It gives you great opportunity for photos. As well, another mountain toucan, like this fantastic plate-billed mountain toucan of northwestern endemics, right ahead of barbet as we going lower in altitude, which is also a stunning bird. And the forest evergreen cloud forest, absolutely stunning. You know, what a magical place to be in search of, you know, wildlife and birding particularly. Never quite, always fantastic. And when you see a branch, you think it's a branch, but no, it turns ahead and happens to be one of the 3 species of quetzals we have. Actually, we have 2 here, crested on the left, crested quetzal, and also golden-headed quetzal on the right, missing the pavonine quetzal in the Amazon. We have 3 species of quetzals in Ecuador, and some of them fairly easy to see. You can hear them at all times with this fantastic call they have, especially golden-headed quetzal. Absolutely wonderful. More colorful tanagers that come to the banana or fruit feeders, you know, being the most special, the bottom left one, glittering green tanager, very overlooked because of the camouflage, just amazing. But golden tanager top right or black-cap tanager on the left, that beautiful blue, a lot of contrast of colors as well, like the rufous-throated tanager on the top bottom right. They all can be seen, you know, on a daily basis. And sometimes the challenge to see them amongst this greenery, suddenly these bright colors going through. Absolutely amazing. Hummingbirds, God, hummingbirds. I mean, the competition gets harder here because Peru and Ecuador and Colombia are actually the three countries that hold, hold all the most of the hummingbirds of the world are kept there. Ecuador has got now 138, I think, species of hummingbirds. In this 2-week trip, we can easily see over 60 species, either on hummingbird feeders or out in the forest or in their flower where they feed. But most of them, as the hummingbirds, are a huge help to see them closer. You know, we can see loads of them. We have from top left here Andean emerald, the wonderful choco endemic on the top right, velvet purple coronet, and the beautiful western race of booted racket tail, tiny little thing, and violet tail sylph, another choco endemic on the bottom right. I think Robin shown this beautiful counterpart of the eastern slope, long-tailed sylph on the eastern slope, where it's possible also in Ecuador. As I said, we have plenty of time to photograph, plenty of chances to photograph, not just the hummingbirds, anything. And we work really hard, if not me or local guides, that work really hard to make sure that you have wonderful views of the birds, and if there's chances for photographs as well. Mammals are key important as well. We've been always looking for more and more mammals. Looking for mammals in the tropics is really hard because it's all thick vegetation, but you can see them. And it's very rewarding when we get these wonderful birds, wonderful creatures like this tyra or cabeza de mate, which can be easily found in many areas if we look for them. And also a lot of kinkajous, you know, they wander around at night, and especially if you find a very nice cecropia with juicy fruits, they'll be there. They love sweet things. The accommodation, as I said, fantastic, beautiful, very cozy, very charming, incredibly clean and really nice, with all the great services to give and to make to give you great comfort and to make your staying more memorable and easier, as we work hard in the field to get all this fantastic wildlife. We also have chances on the end of the trip to go back to Quito and explore this wonderful capital, which it's owner of a beautiful colonial old town with fantastic churches, museums, and lovely people as well, like these beautiful girls from Motabal, I think they are, which also you can access stations to go and see the Indian markets and the and all the handicrafts and things, but also a lot of the culture that in this country involves. Well, I think we've dashed that promise. I would love to talk more and more, but it's been wonderful to talk to you, a little whisker of my beautiful country, Ecuador, and I really hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you sometime either there or anywhere else in the world, but Ecuador is your next destination, so please search more about it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Byron. That's a lovely way to end the evening. What a fantastic country Ecuador is, and we've got a group off there in a month's time, so if you're watching on that tour, you've got an insight tonight from Byron on what to expect. One of the features, Byron, is the feeding stations these days in Ecuador, isn't it? Like Angel Paz, where birds that you would hardly have dreamt of seeing 20 years ago now are hopping out on the trail in front of you. It's just a great experience.
Absolutely. And not just there in the Pass for Future of the Birds, it's just all across in some of the Hokotoco reserves as well, and pitas are being fed regularly, and these, which makes sightings way easier and very close.
Yeah, great. I don't know if Robin, Jose, I think Jose Antonio just saw flicker up a minute ago. If Robin and Rob, if you're still around, turn your cameras on. Oh, Robin, you've managed to stay awake. Great stuff after your hard.
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah.
Just about hanging on.
Right. Folks, if you're watching, a lot of you stayed on for the entire presentation. If you have any questions for the guys, please fire away, either in the chat or in the Q&A section. I'll just kick off with a couple of questions myself. These are questions I often get asked when I'm talking to people interested in booking these trips. Jose Antonio, I'll start with you. Bolivia is a roof of Latin America. You go to some quite high altitudes there, particularly on the highland strip. Do you ever have any problems with altitude sickness, and how do you combat that?
Well, basically, during the lowland trip, it's all fine. We don't have ever problems. Sometimes during the highland tour in Bolivia, when we get to La Paz, is where we have sometimes problems, as I said, no? What we normally do is we ask people how they feel. If they're not feeling okay, we ask them to stay at the hotel, because the hotel is very comfortable, as you saw in the presentation. And so, yeah, I mean, a couple of times only the people stay at the hotel, and then the other times they went off, with the tour, and when they were feeling sick later, they stay in the car, and they didn't do any walkings. And fair enough, we stay up in high elevation for only a few hours, and then we go down into the cloud forest where people start feeling better. And then we head back to La Paz, which is okay, for the great hotel we have. So that's how we deal. We never have major problems with high altitude sickness, and we usually handle okay.
Great. You also lead a tour in Peru called Surf and Turf, which goes up to the high Andes in Peru. I might have you back next winter to talk about that tour, but there we'll have oxygen in our transport, just in case people need some additional gas. Rob, I'll stick on Peru for the time being. Simon Pugh asked earlier on about the conservation situation in Peru. We're all aware of the issues over the last few decades regarding deforestation and monoculture, palm oil, for example. Can you give a quick insight, both from the Peru perspective and more widely in South America, what the current conservation status is and whether there's any hope that we can cling on to?
Yeah, well, Peru actually, and South America generally, is probably the most hopeful continent of the global South, Africa, Asia, and South America. The human population pressures tend to be lower, the population densities are generally lower, etc. And you don't have these massive industries of oil palm, etc. It's coming. There are things. Also, Peru and many of the other Latin American countries have been pioneers in setting up very good protected area networks. They established them early, generally. If you look at sort of Henry Pittier National Park, when was it, in Venezuela, 1920 or something? But many of these protected areas now have been established for 40, 50, 60 years. Initially, they may have been paper parks, but because the pressure wasn't there, they didn't have the resources they needed. But now many of these places have got much better resources. I was fortunate to work, as you know, in conservation in Peru for 10 years, supporting the Peruvian government in protecting about 8 million hectares of the Peruvian Amazon. And it's very impressive. There are committed people in these organizations now. They've got most of the resources they need. So you've got a very good national protected area network. And in many of these countries, that's also complemented by local protected area networks run by regional governments, even municipalities. Many places are now protecting watersheds, especially Colombia. Some pioneering work on that in southern Ecuador. That's water users are funding reforestation in the upper watershed, where the water, where the cloud forests and things are. And Peru's going down that route as well. So yeah, there are some very positive things. There are also some really good community initiatives. Chaparrí, that we visited in northern Peru, that I've been involved with since 1999, is a pioneering community reserve. It was the first private conservation area in Peru, 34,000 hectares. And the community there protect the forest and benefit from it by running ecotourism. And the Peru tour, and I believe several of the other tours, visit several of these places where local people are protecting habitats that are crucial for certain species. And that's benefiting it. And there's some great little local NGOs doing the same thing as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Rob, when I was in Colombia in 2015, this respect for a rich natural heritage in Colombia really shone through for me. I think that Colombia is a shining example of setting up national parks and putting bilingual interpretation signs up for local school children. I thought that was fantastic in Colombia. Just a few
I think
words.
it's spread right across to this sort of pride of their natural heritage is universal across South America now. It's very pleasing to see.
Yeah, Robin, just a word from you on safety and security. For a lot of our young adult lives, the 5 of us, Colombia was a no-go zone, wasn't it? And parts of Peru too, with a shining path. But things have changed greatly over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And I just found Colombia so warm and welcoming. And this came through in your talk. In your time there, have you ever sensed any danger being a Westerner in Colombia?
Well,
sorry, was that?
I think what's important to that like any country, big cities, there's areas that you can't go to. Southern Bogota, for example, is really no go. We of course don't go to these areas on the tours. We stick to green areas that are on the FCO advisory. I've never had any problems on tours, and as I mentioned in the talk, the people in Colombia are overwhelmingly friendly, welcoming. They love to see tourists in the country. You're really welcomed with open arms everywhere you go. I'm sure all the other guys will back me up and say the same for their respective countries, and I know a lot of the guys have traveled in Colombia, Rob especially, Byron as well. You know, it's a wonderfully friendly country, yeah, I'd really encourage everyone to come and experience it for themselves, because everyone who comes here goes back and obviously Colombia has a reputation. There's no getting away from that, but that reputation is completely wiped clean when people come out here and they really see the country for themselves. So yeah, we've never had problems. It's a wonderful place to travel, to bird, to enjoy wildlife.
Yeah, Andrew Presler, thanks for your question, which I see Rob has just partly answered. We've heard of various lodges having closed for the lack of tourists during the pandemic. Have lodges in South America generally survived? I think the one that a lot of people have heard about is Azarai, such an iconic lodge in Trinidad, which we understand has plans to reopen in 2022, which is great news. What are you saying there, Rob? Quite a few lodges have really struggled, and a few have sadly ceased operating. But most are in business and keen to welcome people back.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the smaller lodges have really struggled to get through this. They've had to close down, lay staff off temporarily or even permanently. And you know, it's been a difficult couple of years, especially when these countries were on the red list for so long. And you do see some differences in some of the lodges. You know, they haven't been able to invest as much money in things and stuff. But I think it will come back quickly. There's a lot of there waiting and very keen. You know, families depend on ecotourism, whole communities depend on ecotourism, and they're desperate to get it going again. So,
yeah, great. We were talking just before we hit the live button this evening. I mean, the 5 of us all depend on ecotourism for our livelihoods to a large extent, and we were saying that the pandemic has hit the key winter season 2021-2022 hard as far as birding tourism in Latin America goes. But how, if I can go to each of you in turn, how positive are you looking ahead to 2022 and the key winter season 2022-2023? Do you think your tourism in your areas can bounce back? Rob Williams, you go first on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was just fortunate to be guiding a trip in Colombia for just before Christmas, and you could see that it was perfectly safe. There were very sensible regulations in place, etc. And I've seen the same in Peru. The regulations initially were lockdowns, but it's kind of calmed down. It's reached a kind of sensible place now that permits you to travel, and everyone's being very careful in the lodges and stuff like that. And I think it's going to come back now. We can't go through another year. It's been nearly 2 years of uncertainty and things, and the governments there are aware they need to get this right. And so I think it will come back. And I must admit, we all felt very safe on the last couple of trips I've led.
Yeah, would you echo that, Jose Antonio? At home in Cusco, Peru got some pretty bad press earlier on for its response to the pandemic. Have things calmed down? Would you agree with what Rob's just said?
Yes, I do. I mean, apparently we are facing a third wave in Peru, but most of the population are already vaccinated. So the variant that is the predominant now is the Omicron, that is supposed to be, easier to get, but not that fatal. No, you don't die out of it. So people are actually okay. We are not really desperate. As I said, most of the population in Peru have been vaccinated already with the third doses now, and things are getting back. I've been lucky to be leading some group for Americans last year here in Peru. Haven't been in Bolivia yet since the pandemic started, but in Peru things are getting better. So hopefully I'll be starting leading also English or British people in this year and the following years to come. So yes, I agree with Bob. Things are actually getting better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Roy Pouch, you're in the States. Rob Williams is going to answer your questions directly because they really just apply to you. I think we've gone through most of the other questions tonight. I'm just going to finish by asking the four of you to describe your top South American birding experience. It can be a one-off encounter, or it can be an experience that someone can go and enjoy a particular set of hummingbird feeders or macaw clay-lig. Robin Smith, you go first.
Sorry, Andy, I dropped out. I missed you. I just got the hummingbird feeders. I'm assuming that it's a question regarding hummingbird feeders on tours and photography and the like, but no, I'm afraid I missed the question.
Yeah, I'll try again. It's just to wrap up the evening. I've asked the four of you to describe your top South American birding experience or moment. It can be a one-off encounter or a visitor experience that people can go and appreciate for themselves.
Oof. I'd have to go. For me in Colombia, I think my favorite birding destination is Montezuma Lodge and the Western Andes in Colombia. It's not a tour I lead. It's not a tour I operate. It's a colleague of mine and yours, Andy. But it's absolutely mind blowing. One of the great birding days in the world, birding a wonderful altitudinal gradient through Choco habitat. Absolutely fantastic, packed full of endemics and absolutely spectacular species.
It's a good one. So, yeah, that's on a multicolored tanager tour. It's a really, really basic lodge. You don't go there for the fixtures and fittings, but you drive up at dawn to this magnificent mountaintop with spellbinding views all around, and then walk your way down the mountain, encountering endemic bird after endemic bird. That's a great choice, Rob. Byron, what about you?
I think it's a very unfair question, Andy. I mean, especially for one as being around, particularly in these lovely countries. But I would just make a resume of, or take the best of each. That from the perspective being in Ecuador, the habitats that we lack, like the extended Tunisian area of Peru, probably all the Chiquitano and Yungas area in Bolivia, probably one of the valleys along the Magdalena River in Colombia. Gosh, it's just that combined with a few bits and bobs of Ecuador, it's just makes an amazing experience. But yeah, all overall, will be the best of each country really under your belt.
You're sitting on the fence bar and you're cheating. Jose Antonio Padilla, what's your choice?
My show for traveling, you mean?
Your number one highlight of birding in South America?
Well, I have to say Peru, no, because I'm from here. Southern part of Peru, Machu Picchu, for example, doing the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu is amazing. The 5 days, 4 nights we do with Naturetrek. We combine the trekking with birding is amazing. Although it's a little bit exhausted and, you know, challenging for us, the guides. Northern Peru is also great. I mean, we have the spotted tail, one of the best, if it's not the most beautiful bird in the world, the marvelous spotted tail. I mean, that is now coming to the feeders. I mean, it's so easy to see them now. It's just amazing. So is the owlet, you know, the long whisker owlet. I have to say, though, something about Bolivia, right? Being the main guide and the leader for Bolivian tours, for Naturetrek. Bolivia is a country that hasn't been that spoiled yet for a lot of hardcore birders. So that means Bolivia is a country where you can still go, and the birds, for example, respond very well to the calls. No, Bolivia is a country where you can be bird watching in an area, and it will be only you alone. It will be all, you know, solitary areas where there not be that many tourists. No, and in that case, and in that way, I really love Bolivia, I have to say, because Bolivia is a country that it actually combines everything that I ever seen in South America. So I would like to invite all to come to Bolivia. Bolivia tours are mainly focusing birds, I have to say, but we can always go off the path and show people, you know, part of the culture of Bolivia, food, and also, you know, close to Titicaca, the Wari pre-Inca culture, sorry, the Tiahuanaco pre-Inca culture is actually there, and spend some time there. So I really love Bolivia, although I'm Peruvian, as you know, but I miss my birding tours in Bolivia. I really like everybody to decide and come to this part of South America as well.
Great, thanks, Jose. And Rob, you to finish.
Well, just one quick comment on Montezuma. I was just there, and the new rooms are actually a big upgrade, and so they're really making bigger busts there. But for this most spectacular birding, it's got to be hitting those big mixed species tanager flocks, either in the Choco of Ecuador or Colombia, or on the eastern Andes of Ecuador and northern Peru, just below Agua Patricia. You hit one of those big flocks and you've got 200 birds of 50, 60 species pinging through, and it's just an adrenaline rush. You know, it's 30, 40 minutes trying to stick with it, calling all the birds, getting everyone on them, and at the end you just kind of emotionally drained. Your eyeballs are fried from all the colors you've seen. You're trying to remember what was in the flock, how many were each, you know, sort of keeping your notes, and there's nothing like it. You just sit there and it's euphoria. You know, birding, it's sort of birding pornography, euphoria, overload. It's insane.
Yeah, great stuff. And I'll just finish off by giving mine as well. I'll go for the big macaw clay licks in southeast Peru when the sun rises over that big red clay cliff and hundreds of big macaws come down to the clay cliff. That is a magical experience if you hit it on the right dry September morning. Close second would be dawn at that canopy tower treetop in the Byron show at Satchel Lodge. If you get a fruiting tree next to Tower at dawn, you can get 100 species without moving. That's a phenomenal experience as well. And just to finish, I think the Amphitter feeding station at Angel Paz near Mindo in Ecuador, where you get Maria, the giant Amphitter, just hopping out on the trail in front of you. I don't know if she's still alive, Maria, but if not, it'll be a descendant.
There might be Maria the fifth.
Maria 3, Maria 5. I'm a bit out of
yeah.
date, but you've got to get to Angel Paz in Ecuador. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Happy New Year, those of you that stayed on for this chat. Great to see you all with us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your kind comments, and we look forward to traveling with you in 2022. I'll just give you a few seconds to leave, but yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Safe travels. Keep well. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
All the best, guys. All the
Andy.
best.
Thanks.
Right, Happy New Year.